Hello, and welcome to the Curious Podcast. I am the Sinistro. I'm just about to get started today with my creative work for the day. Actually, I've already done a little, but got more going on. I figured I would try an experimental record as I'm working podcast and see what it sounds like. This is going to be a long one-take video or audio, and I just want to hear what that sounds like. Today is February 27th, my 7/12th birthday, and it seems like a fitting thing to do. Anyhow, you're going to want to navigate to curioustale.org. On the right-hand navigation menu, click on the Curious Tale. And on the when you get to that page, on the left-hand nav menu, click on After the Hero. That's the web page that we're going to be working on today, or I'm going to be working on today. It might be cool for you to be able to follow along as I'm going. This is kind of an insight into my creative process. You're only going to be able to see the finished product on the page, but I think that could be kind of cool looking at hearing me develop it. This is an experiment, and I'm worried that it might be too dull even for fans. So if you enjoy this, let me know. Otherwise, I don't expect that I'll make this kind of podcast again anytime soon. So let me know. It's an hour long, and it's all there is. It's just me writing this web page. So you know what you're getting into, and here we go. I made a bit of an edit. I edited out the first half hour. It was originally 90 minutes long, so a couple of times you're going to hear me make reference to things earlier in the podcast that never happened or that you never heard. It shouldn't throw you too much, but if you're wondering, that's what's going on there. All right, let's do this. All right. I'm going to switch modes here. I'm going to keep the recording on. I'm going to try and forget. No, that's not the right way to put it. I'm not going to try and forget that it's recording. I'm going to try and ignore that it's recording. And I'm going to try and think aloud. And we'll see what happens. Okay, so here I'm back on the home page, and I'm going to work on that text. On the dunes of the sand ocean and the soda plains of the far east of the world, 7 sand ships glide toward the lush. I cannot say that little passage there. 7 sand ships glide toward the lush sanctuary metropolis, a gleaming city of commerce. 7 sand ships glide towards the lush sanctuary metropolis, a gleaming city of commerce. All right. What do I really want to say about Chapter 1? Well, so here I can talk about the Gallan conquest, or I can talk about the people on those ships, specifically Silence and Delatia. What are people going to want to see? What's going to be more exciting? They don't have any connection with these characters, so they probably would be more enticed by the big picture description of what's happening. Their goal, their mission, their purpose. To take the city for Gala. To take the city for Gala. To take the city. Their purpose to take the city is too short. There needs to be something else here. On the dunes of the sand ocean and the soda plains, 7 sand ships glide toward the lush sanctuary metropolis, a gleaming city of commerce. You know what I really should do? This should be a vlog, and I should be recording the screen. Then you could see the text. I can't imagine anyone wanting to listen to this. Yeah, without video, yeah, I don't see it happening. Okay. Okay, well, I'll carry on a little bit longer, just as an experiment. On the dunes of the sand ocean, in the soda plains of the far east of the world, 7 sand ships glide towards the lush sanctuary metropolis, a gleaming city of commerce. Their purpose? To take that city for gala and begin the spread, and to take that city for gala. By cunning, if possible, and force, if necessary. The gallons are every bit as weary and from the on the day after the heroes' invasion of their homes, the gallons are every bit as weary and distraught as the Sodish people are jubilant and oblivious to the reality looming ahead of them. Every bit as weary and distraught at their circumstance as the Sodish people are jubilant and oblivious to the realm ahead of them as they celebrate their great anniversary festival. The reason I'm not calling it the Festival of Octa Prima is that I have done some reconfiguring of the city's age in the new order. Originally, Soda Fountain was 81 years. I'm sorry, 81 years. And that's 9 times 9. And so it wasn't just an anniversary, it was a very special anniversary. 9 times 9. Here, Soda Fountain needs to be older, especially since the Relancy year is shorter than the Terran year. Probably gonna be 9 times 9 times 9. Octa Prima, 81. That's a problem. I don't know how I could come up with another 81 if it's not a direct reference to years. Could be 81 generations. That makes the city much older. That makes the city 25 times older. So instead of almost 100 years, we're looking at 2,500. More like 2,000, but still, a 2,000-year-old city. That doesn't seem correct. Maybe. I mean, cities can be 2,000 years old, even on Earth. But to go from envisioning Soda Fountain as 81 years old to thinking of it as 2,000 years old, that's a tough pill to swallow. We could conceive of a generation as being something else. Well, 2,000 years, it's actually more like 1,500 years. Earth years, Terran years. That's still a long time. What else is 81? Well, anyway, because I don't have an answer to that, that's why I'm avoiding this in the text. Their purpose, to take that city for gala, by cunning if possible and force if necessary. I'm going to change necessary because that's too common of a phrasing. Force if need be, if must be, if it must be so. By cunning if possible, and by force if... leave it as necessary. On the day after the heroes... Oh, we got title fall. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean to do that. On the day after the heroes' invasion of their homes, the Gallons are every bit as weary and distraught at their circumstance as the rich, as the affluent, as the... What's a good adjective for a prosperous commercial city? As the rich, as the... There's so many connotations with basic words like that. That puts a whole different image into the audience's head if I call them a rich people. The lush sanctuary metropolis of Soda Fountain. Wasn't sure about including the city's name because it's goofy. Soda Fountain. The gleaming city of commerce. But I should put it in there. It's not necessary. The soda plane should provide an analog for sodish. Oh, and incidentally, I have a new demonym for that. Sodish refers, generally speaking, to the people of Soda Fountain, not from the soda plains in general. So the demonym for the soda plains in general is Soda Main, just like Minimane. It's perfect. It's beautiful. Sort of like how American is a demonym for someone from the United States of America and not necessarily for a resident elsewhere on the continent of the Americas. Some of our fellow American countries take issue with that sometimes. Anyhow, on the day after the heroes' invasion of their homes, the Gallons are every bit as weary and distraught at their circumstance as the Sodish people are jubilant and oblivious to the invasion, to the conquest, to the subjugation, to the reality is fine, to the reality looming ahead of them as they celebrate their great anniversary festival. Now we're getting into sort of inside of the dust jacket description of a novel territory, and that's fine. But what needs to be said in that event? What needs to be said here? On the dunes of the sand ocean and the soda plains of the far east of the world, 7 sand ships glide towards the lush sanctuary metropolis, a gleaming city of commerce. Their purpose, to take that city for gala, by cunning if possible and force if necessary, on the day after the heroes' invasion of their homes. Oh, by the way, do I capitalize the here? Have I been capitalizing the? No, I haven't. Okay. I capitalized the hero in after the hero, but I don't think I've been capitalizing it just as the hero in the text. Yeah, I'd check the prelude on that real fast. I used to capitalize everything, and over the years I capitalized less and less. Okay, yeah, it's not capitalized. And so I've become inconsistent. And it bugs me. Anyhow, the Gallons are every bit as weary. Okay, so what now? What are we saying here? The agents of the story are the Gallons, so the next paragraph, put the tags in. The next paragraph should focus on the Gallons. This would be a place to introduce characters. Trouble is, there are so many fucking characters. So many fucking characters. Just in chapter 1, just on the Gallon side, there is... oh my gosh, there's Silence. There's Admiral Cayufa. There's Captain Rogra. There's Articura. There's Jay. There's Jazer. There's currently named Pauline. There's oh my gosh, it goes on. There are a number of other people just under the Silence umbrella. Then there's Delatia, her people, Diva, Calendus, Ezrealis. So many people. It's tough. Like, Silence is the main character. She's the mainest of the main characters, even in a story that is ensemble based at heart. So you can never really go wrong by talking about her, but it's also misleading to talk about her and build the expectation that all the scenes more or less are about her, because that's not true. So far, if you've read the prelude and you're going into this, you might be expecting all points of view to be Gallon, and that's not going to be the case. It's the case in section 1, all viewpoints. No, that's not even true. Even in section 1, there is a viewpoint right at the very beginning that is not Gallon. Anyhow, that scene, by the way, I love it. It's one of those scenes that arose organically. Another scene, just like the one I talked about at the beginning of this podcast, that didn't exist previously, but just came about. Unlike the scene I mentioned at the front of the podcast, which was specifically inspired for a very singular purpose, this other scene at the beginning of section 1 just arose naturally from the text. I had written this beautiful description of the morning and of the Gallon ship's lights appearing on the horizon. And something in my mind said, someone needs to see those lights. And so I devised some Devarangians to see it, to see those lights, and a whole scene emerged, and I ended up getting a useful character out of it, because I need more characters, right? This character is going to be an early demonstration of the sway, the persuasion that Silence is trying to figure out. That's a big preoccupation. Oh, that could be a thing. Silence is trying to figure out how to sway the nations. That's her big preoccupation in chapter 1. How she's thinking to herself, how am I going to do this? Zirin had a certain way of doing it. Silence figures out about halfway through or some way through the chapter that's just not going to work. Or maybe she even figured that out in the prelude. I'll need to double check. But she figures out that she's going to have to do it a different way from what Zirin would have done. Yeah, she does figure that out in the prelude. Because in the prelude, Zirin's approach is bureaucratic, basically. And Silence isn't able to do that because the resources aren't available. So Silence is trying to figure out how she's going to sway the nations. That deserves a paragraph right here. Leading the Gallon fleet are 2 guards, two gods of Galavar, luminaries. Those luminaries of their age. Those luminaries of their age, of the age Luminaries of the age. Delatia, the brilliant military strategist whose responsibility, whose obligation. Now, maybe we start with silence so that Delatia can be the period. Silence Turley. I could call her a disheveled loner. She's not. She's only disheveled situationally. And loner, that's too stereotypical. The inscrutable. Is she inscrutable? The inscrutable Silence Turley, tasked with swaying the nations to the gallants, the nations of Relance. To Gala. I don't need to use the phrase the nations of the world. Maybe I do. The nations of the world to the gallant's ideal through peaceful, or through true persuasion. Leading the gallant fleet are 2 guards of Galavar, luminaries of the age. The inscrutable Silence Turley, tasked with swaying the nations of the world to the gallant's ideal through persuasion and, I want to say peace, but her methods are definitely not strictly peaceful. Through persuasion, through true persuasion. And Lilith Delatia, the brilliant military strategist whose task, whose army will settle the matters. Will settle the matter when persuasion does not. See, that's why she belongs second, not because she's second to silence. I mean, this is more a Delatia chapter than a silence chapter, but just for the flow of this sentence, she needs to come second. Leading the gallant fleet are 2 guards of Galavar, luminaries of the age. The inscrutable Silence Turley, tasked with swaying the nations of the world to the gallant's ideal through true persuasion. And Lilith Delatia, the brilliant military strategist whose army will settle the matter when persuasion does not. All right, I think that's good. I think that's good. Yeah. Right? What are we at? We're coming up on an hour on the recording. Wow, okay. By the way, this, even with the time that I'm taking to explain this to you, this is not an inaccurate representation of how long it takes me to write manuscript text. This is not manuscript text, of course, but it is in-world text. No, it's not. Well, it is. It is in a sort of sense. It's in-world text in a very meta-narrator sort of sense. But anyway, manuscript text, it can take this kind of time. I can spend a lot of time just working on 1 paragraph. Or 2 paragraphs, I think we're on. Yeah. I would like a few more paragraphs. One more needs to be said in this paragraph. Do I talk more about Silence or Delatia? Or do I talk about other gallons, or about their ships, or about... They carry with them, these 2 carry with them the burdens of changing a world that does not want to change. Is that reasonable? That's also a little bit boilerplate. The reader can infer. Far above, a river of fire flows through the sky, a reminder of Galavar's great work. In grappling together with God. A reminder of Galavar's great work. The reader can... far above, a river of fire flows through the sky. A reminder of Galavar's great work. Next paragraph. That river spans across the desert metropolis as well. Here I would start talking about specific characters in Soda Fountain. Soda Fountain. Home or way station. To many I have to be careful with the word curious. This would be a natural place. Home or way station is way. Spell check is telling me that way station is not one word. Don't buy it. Let's look at it. Way station. Alright. Now way station. Wiktionary, help me. See also way station. Alternative. Okay, yeah, I can totally spell it as one word, and I will. Home or way station to many. A what? What adjective here connects these characters with the reader's interest? Curious, right? Curious. I mean, I can use it once. To many a curious mate. To many a curious mate who will soon enough become loyal supporters, loyal, become enfranchised. Franchised citizens. Citizens? Residents, denizens, members, enfranchised, partners, participants, who will soon enough become enfranchised, denizens, members. Franchised partners sounds too corporate. Franchised citizens. That's tricky because Galen's citizenship is not a thing. Citizens. Okay, so we'll go to the thesaurus.com and we'll ask, what's a synonym for citizen that I'm overlooking? Voter, civilian, national, resident, settler, taxpayer, burgess, burger, commoner, cosmopolite, dweller, native, subject. Dash it all. Alright, let's try member. Chapter, cut, parcel, piece, comrade, Glorious comrade of Gala, we salute you. Constituent. Let's look that one up. Constituent. Let's see how constituent looks on the page. Enfranchised constituent. That is a mouthful. That's a motherfucking mouthful of Gala. And many others who, in due time, will become some of Gala's most ardent foes. Alright, that river spans across the desert metropolis as well. Soda fountain, home or way station. I mean, way station is an accurate addition. Soda fountain is not home to all of the people who are going to be appearing in Soda fountain. Home or way station to many a curious mate who will, soon enough, become enfranchised constituents of Gala, and many others who, in due course, will become some of Gala's most ardent foes. The decisions they make in the coming hours will shape the course of history in the years after the hero. Now, title fall twice in the same 3 paragraphs, dangerous. I mean, title fall is something you gotta be real careful about. I think, ignoring the RPG because I don't remember. Oh, no. In the RPG, title fall happened at the chapter level. 2 of the chapters were named The Curious Tale, or A Curious Tale. But forget the RPG. In the various novel draft versions over the years, I have been very stingy with title fall. In one of the old drafts, there is a scene where Thanatos calls Silence a curious figure and a curious tale, and that is the only time I remember using that phrase anywhere in the manuscript text in all those old versions. And the only time I remember using after the hero was actually for the last words of the opening scene of chapter 1. It's describing the Galan fleet and its advance across the Sand Ocean. The section ends with something to the effect of it's at the very end of the chapter. It's the last words of chapter 1. Galavar and his mind washing. It was the greatest thing that had been done after the hero, or something like that. And then the chapter ends. That's old draft versions. So I have to be careful with title fall. You always have to. I mean, it's so kitschy. You can get away with it maybe once a book. Outside of the manuscript, you can use it a little more liberally, but twice in 3 paragraphs is too much. The first one was unintentional. This one is intentional and maybe is the kitschier of the 2. Let's read it all. On the dunes of the Sand Ocean, in the soda plains of the... I should read it like one of those radio announcers. On the dunes of the Sand Ocean, in the soda plains of the far east of the world, 7 sand ships glide toward the lush sanctuary metropolis, a gleaming city of commerce. I'm not a good radio announcer. Their purpose, to take that city for Gala, by cunning if possible and force if necessary. On the day after the hero's invasion of their homes, the Galans are every bit as weary and distraught at their circumstance as the Sodish people are jubilant and oblivious to the reality looming ahead of them as they celebrate their great anniversary festival. Leading the Galan fleet are 2 guards of Galavar, luminaries of the age, the inscrutable Silence Terle, tasked with swaying the nations of the world to the Galant's ideal through true persuasion, and Lilith de Latia, the brilliant military strategist whose army will settle the matter when persuasion does not. Far above them both, a river of fire flows through the sky. a reminder of Galavar's great work in far-off lands. No, just a reminder of Galavar's great work. If you don't know what Galavar's great work is, then great. Read on. Read on. Read and find out. Read the fucking book. That river spans across the desert metropolis as well, so to Fountain, home or way station to many a curious mate who will, soon enough, become enfranchised constituents of Gala, or, in due course, some of Gala's most ardent foes. The decisions they make in the coming hours will shape the course of history in the years after the hero. Yeah, that first after the hero is so natural that I didn't even notice it when I was reading it. This after the hero is very obviously Titlefall. In the years that this will shape the course of history. I could say, and the fate of the world. That's true, but that is also so cliche. Will shape the course of history. Yeah, let's just cut this second Titlefall out. Okay, that's only 3 paragraphs. Let me look at the prelude about page. You have, boy, 1, 2, 3. You have 3 paragraphs as well, 3 core paragraphs. I would like 1 or 2 more paragraphs. Okay, so this tells of the sand ships. This is a story. Okay, yeah, let's step back and get a little lecture-y, a little out of immersion. This is a story of the tagline, beauty, power, wonder of living and dying. But I've said that enough. This is a story of people forced. Well, this is. I could go with the river fire. Like, this is history, a river. It's bigger than any one person. Everyone's caught up in it. What do I write here that attracts the reader? I don't know the answer to that. What I do know is that we're at 1 hour and 10 minutes, and that seems like a good place. No, let's carry on. Let's complete the experiment. I feel like I'm getting close to finishing editing this page. This is a story of people who care and people who don't. A story of people, a story of a story of a vast and beautiful world. People who don't. A story of those who stand helpless before the before the course of events. And those who strive to control their fate. A story of what it means to be a part of something so much bigger. You are. They are. This is a story of people who care and people who don't. A story of those who stand helpless before the course of events and those who strive to control their fate. A story of what it means to be a part of something so much bigger than you are. That you is tricky, and that you, I don't know, it disrupts the immersion, I think. This is the story of people who care and people who don't. A story of a vast and wonderful world, both worshipped and ignored. A story of those who stand helpless before the course of events and those who strive to control their fate. A story of what it means to be a part of something bigger. This is all kind of boilerplatey. This is all kind of rhetorical. Let's see how it reads. This is a story of people who care and people who don't. You need to switch to semicolons with this many different. This is a story of people who care and people who don't. A story of a vast and wonderful world, both worshipped and ignored. A story of people who stand helpless before the course of events, and those who strive, win or lose, live or die, to control their fate. A story of what it means to be a part of something greater. To reach out into the world and see not knowing what to grasp, what to find. But only it means to be a part of something greater. And now a little disclaimer. Next paragraph. The curious tale tends to eschew some of the more popular, tends to ignore. I mean, eschew is more correct, but ignore is more accessible. Some of the more common themes in fantasy. There are no true villains. You get to decide. Get to decide who to root for, who's right and who's wrong, who to root for, who to love or hate. It's not an everything is shades of gray situation. Surely not. It's a world so real. It's a story of a world so real that what you see in it, so real that will certainly find profound good and evil within it. Great champions, vile ne'er-do-wells, vile miscreants. You will certainly find profound good and evil within it. The Curious Tale tends to ignore some of the more common themes in fantasy. It's not correct. The Curious Tale tends to ignore some of the more common practices in fantasy storytelling. Like the title says, just like the title after the hero suggests. You get to decide who's right and who's wrong, who to root for, who to love or hate. It's not an everything is shades of grey kind of story. It's a story of a world so real that you will certainly find profound good and evil within it. The characters do not lend themselves to the simplistic archetypes. They read more like real people who can only be judged on the basis of in their own context. They read like real people who can only be... If I have done my job right, they read like real people who can only be judged in their own context. And the plots are mature enough to understand that sometimes it is important to stop and smell the flowers. This is a story that asks your patience and your enthusiasm for just noticing. I'm using italics here, for just noticing and enjoying. For just noticing and enjoying. Close italics, the world around you. Okay. This paragraph down here can go. It's already up here. Extra break. Okay, so let's see what this looks like on the internet. I'll save the file. Boy, that file icon has been red for days and days and days to signify that it has not been saved since it was last edited, and now it's blue, and that means all is right with the world. It is saved. All changes are saved. There's so much I love about Notepad++. One is that you can create a copy of a file that you're editing. Rather than save as, it's save a copy as. So you can create a file, a copy of your file with a different name and still keep the original one open. It's like the opposite of save as. Anyway, But to the point here, one thing I love about Notepad++ is that it saves all of your work automatically all the time. You will never lose data unless there's some kind of really bad crash. I've never lost data. So if you haven't saved something manually, it doesn't matter. When you open it up again, when you open up the editor, the Notepad++ itself again, all your open tabs, all of your open documents will still be there exactly as they were, whether or not you saved them. I love that. Okay, the Curious Tale, After the Hero, and what do we want? After the Hero, Home. Okay, yeah, Home. After the Hero, Home. And edited today, just 1 minute ago. Yes. Boom, it's on the internet. Refresh the page. Let's read the whole thing. After the Hero tells the tale of the ambition of Galavar, a stranger from the desert who defeats the hero who had been destined to stop him. With his victory only barely won and the future uncertain, Galavar desperately embarks upon the Galan conquest years earlier than he had intended, in the hope of maintaining surprise in a world that is about to learn what he plans. Those events are detailed in the prelude to After the Hero, a short novel that sets the stage for what is to come. Then there is a scene divider, and then on the dunes of the sand ocean and the soda plains of the far east of the world, 7 sand ships glide toward the lush sanctuary metropolis, a gleaming city of commerce. Their purpose? To take that city for Gala, by cunning if possible, and force if necessary. On the day after the hero's invasion of their homes, the Galans are every bit as weary and distraught at their circumstances. The Sodish people are jubilant and oblivious to the reality looming ahead of them as they celebrate their great anniversary festival. Leading the Galan fleet are 2 guards of Galavar, luminaries of the age, the inscrutable Silence Turley, tasked with swaying the nations of the world to the Galant's ideal through true persuasion, and Lilith Delatia, the brilliant military strategist whose army will settle the matter when persuasion does not. Far above them both, a river of fire flows through the sky, a reminder of Galavar's great work. That river spans across... Oh, there's a word for that. In Curious Tale Saturdays, in times past, we call it mind washing. In Dvorange, they have some very pejorative words for it, but there's an imperial term for it that I don't remember. I have to look it up. Anyway, that river spans across the desert metropolis as well. Soda fountain, home or way station to many a curious mate who will, soon enough, become enfranchised constituents of Gala, or, in due course, some of Gala's most ardent foes. The decisions they make in the coming hours will shape the course of history. This is a story of people who care and people who don't. A story of a vast and wonderful world both worshipped and ignored. A story of people who stand helpless before the course of events and those who strive, live or die, to control their fate. A story of what it means to be a part of something greater. The Curious Tale tends to ignore some of the more common practices in fantasy storytelling, just like the title, After the Hero, suggests. You get to decide who's right and who's wrong, who to root for, who to love or hate. It's not an everything is shades of gray kind of story, however. Add a however. But it's not an everything is shades of gray kind of story. It's a story of a world so real that you will certainly find profound good and evil within it. The characters do not lend themselves, and the characters, even and. It's a trademark of mine, beginning a sentence with a conjunction. You're not supposed to do it. I do it all the time. And the characters of this story, I need more words here. The characters of this story do not lend themselves. Where was I? To simplistic archetypes. If I have done my job right, they read like real people who can only be judged in their own context. And the plots are mature enough to understand that sometimes it is important is awkward. Sometimes you need to stop and smell the flowers. This is a story that asks your patience and your enthusiasm for just noticing and enjoying the world around you. I can de-italicize that because the italics don't look good. You know, they don't look good. Luckily, I use a different font for manuscript text on the site, and those italics do look good, but the standard font italics do not look good. So italicizing long phrases, not good. Anyway, I need one more paragraph. In between, I need to indicate that this is just the beginning. So that paragraph goes here, after the last in-character paragraph. This battle for Soda Fountain. The battle for Soda Fountain marks only the very beginning of a much larger adventure, tale, story, plot. The battle for Soda Fountain marks only the very beginning of a much greater struggle. A story that wraps its pages around a whole world. The people from the whole world, from the people who dwell in it, to the gods who created it. It is the world itself that lives and dies. It is the world of Relance itself that lives and dies in our tale. It is Relance we come to know best. It is Relance itself who we come to know best. Is that a lie? It's a conceit, that's for sure. Let's see how this looks on the internet. Boom, extra paragraph. Now this page is looking good. It's just the right length. Oh, I need a link. I need a link on the bottom. What do you do when you get to the bottom of this page? I can solve that on my own time, and you can see on that page whatever it is I'm going to come up with. If this ever gets published, if this podcast ever gets published, you'll be able to look at the page right now, and it'll be there. Okay, well, we've been recording for an hour and a half. It's time for me to go. I'm going to listen to this at some later point and see what I think of it. Thanks for listening. Bye.